My name's Jack Stephen. I am what's known as an A&R man. I'm probably one of the last of a dying breed. I have my own record label in London. I have it distributed through Universal. I've been involved in working for many major record companies and signed many acts over the years, which include the Eurythmics, Sade, Nena Cherry, X-Ray Specs, Bow Wow Wow, Jamiroquai.
Now, as I promised, we'll talk now more about David Bowie and his influence. Let's bring in Jack Stephen. He is director of Fortune Music.
It's actually Fortress Music.
Fortress Music.
Yes.
Do beg your pardon, Jack.
Mind.
Fortress Music, and worked as in the music industry as an executive in the Bowie era, and also Bowie's fashion sense we're going to talk about as well. It's influenced the era. And Lizzie Zeta, fashion stylist, is with. Welcome to you both. Apologies again,
No
Jack.
problem.
I mean, but perhaps first sum up how you felt this morning when you heard this news.
I was just saying earlier that I actually felt that part of me had died. I mean, I have to say that's how much an influence he is, I think, to me and to thousands and millions of people around the world. And strangely, I'm surprised. I sort of lived through John Lennon's death, Elvis's death, and sadly, this one's affected me more than any other. I mean, it's a very strange thing because I think with him, he was probably the first complete artist where he was involved in every single area of his career, whether it's photography, fashion, whether it was film, whether it was poetry, whether it was live work where he was very theatrical. I mean, his vocal influence, a lot of people don't know this, came from Anthony Newley.
I ask my own reflection and I see the funny man is me.
Who, of course, was a musical artist.
Have you ever heard such clever stuff before?
So I find it very, very sad today.
People today talking about how he reinvented himself, how he went with the times, but he led the times in so many aspects through the 70s, 80s, 90s.
He wasn't frightened of change, and so to him every album was a different persona. And so he loved doing that, So at one point he had Ziggy Stardust, next point he had Ed Insane, and he wasn't frightened of plagiarism either. I mean, he used, for example, the Hunky Dory photograph on the album was actually based on Marlene Dietrich, and so he wasn't frightened where he did, where he used his influence from. I mean, he was hugely influential with me because I was A&R at RCA. When he was sort of to the tail end of that.
When I signed the Eurythmics, I mean, the record company, the press, radio, and RCA America really did not like or want the band, simply because they were different and they didn't understand them, and they broke through.
And I signed a band there called the Eurythmics, which I was having terrible problems with. I mean, really, nobody liked them at the label. I mean, promotion didn't like them, press didn't like them. I mean, nobody did. My boss didn't really like them. He kept telling me that they were weird. And there was an artist liaison guy there called Tony McGrogan who sort of came up to my office, grabbed me and said, look, Bowie wants to meet up with you. Bring the tapes. So I always remember this, I brought The Walk and Love is a Stranger. And I sat with him and I played them to him and he thought they were absolutely fantastic. And then, his words to me were very much, if you believe in it, fight for it. Because I have, that's what he said to me. And so I did, and it became hugely successful. And when the album went top 5, I got a telegram from him saying, thank God there's finally an A&R man with ears at RCA. Shame I've gone to EMI.
Fine. We'll talk about him as a man, because actually showing that he was funny.
He was very funny, yeah.
Lizzie, the influence on your side of your profession, I mean, incredible what
Enormous.
he did and how his look evolved, and not just the fashion, the makeup, the hair, and the influence that, I guess it was all down to him, was it? Or did he have a team of designers?
No, he didn't. I mean, no doubt he took ideas from various people, as Jack has said. But what I love about him is that he was such a true creative. He was a real innovator, and he didn't give a damn. He was a true original, and he changed all the time his different looks throughout the ages. Just when you think, oh well, we've got a grip on that, he'd completely change again and do something totally different. He would completely pare it down, cut it back, make it black and white. So yeah, he was an amazing guy.
And for so long through the career, gender neutral.
Yes, he was. Initially, he was gender neutral. He was one of the first men, aside from Mick Jagger, to wear a dress. That was early on. That caused complete controversy at the time. Now we're just like, oh, well, guys in a dress is not, you know. But at the time, it was very groundbreaking. It was very, very brave of him to do so. Then he went on to his androgynous stage and Ziggy Stardust and all the stuff that we know so well. And after that, he decided that he was going to pare things down and go for, you know, very simple looks, black trousers, white shirt, very, very simple, all the time changing. Just when you think that you had him, he'd move in a completely different direction.
Jack, do you think he was a happy man? You've clearly shown us that he was a funny man, or could be funny.
The times that I met him, yes. You know, I mean, you know, what was there not to be happy? I mean,
the pressure?
Well, the pressure maybe, but I mean, he was able to express himself in a way that most artists can't. One of the most beautiful wives in the world. I mean, you know, it's just sort of, you know, I mean, what do you know?
What's not to like?
What's not to like? And also, you know, he had such a grasp on technology, even when he got ill. You know, I mean, I heard that he was having heart trouble and stuff. But then he sort of digitally released an album that went to #1 in the UK charts. I mean, you know, so I think if I was Bowie and I look back at my career, I'd be pretty, you know, happy about what I've achieved. It wasn't easy for him, I have to tell you. I mean, he fought every single step of the way.
In the case of most creativity, particularly to do with music, they're integrated. So for example, if you take somebody like David Bowie not only had his music, but he had his performance, he had his designers, he had his video makers, he had his photographers. You know, this was a whole kind of concept.
I mean, I know the American side was really hard because he was furious that none of his records really broke big in America. And so he really got sort of annoyed and actually just packed up, went to America, and then did the Diamond Dogs tour where he booked 3 theatres. I mean, I think one in Philadelphia, Radio City, and I think the other one was the Universal tour. I can't remember, it was the Universal thing. And he booked them himself, filmed it, and he said, right, I'm breaking America alone. I don't care about you, RCA, and
I mean, interestingly, even if in your youth or even now anyone wasn't into Bowie, today will show you that the people that you were into or are into have been terribly influenced by what he did. I mean, he had such an impact on so many layers of the music industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But also, you see, he was a great spotter of talent. I mean, you know, he was the first person to, you know, from the UK as a European artist who sort of got into the whole Velvet Underground scene. You know, I mean, he loved all of that. Iggy Pop and the Stooges. You know, he's the first person to experiment with sort of dark computer sounds in terms of his, you know, albums like Low and Lodger, which he did in Berlin with Tony Visconti and Brian Eno. You know, Let's Dance, I mean, that was a complete surprise, you know, working with Nile Rodgers. I mean, it was almost a disco record. I mean, it's phenomenal. You know, even Tin Man, which, you know, wasn't very popular, but I always kind of liked it because it was like him going, you know, I like, you know, white trash rock, and I'm going to play it, and, you know, that's it. I was going to swear then.
Behave.
But he was also great at spotting fashion talent. He picked up on a young designer called Yamamoto, who then went on to design those really outlandish costumes for stage, very theatrical, very strong. And he also later picked up on Alexandra McQueen, who designed him a frock coat. This was before Alexandra McQueen was really huge. And he designed this frock coat for him, complete with cigarette burns everywhere, that was incredibly iconic. So I think he was a highly intelligent, erudite man, and he was a visionary who could pick up all these influences before they started hitting the mainstream, and he was always true to himself.
And all of those things live on in the exhibition that there is of his clothes, which is now touring the world,
and has been hugely successful.
Do you have a favourite look, a favourite time of David Bowie?
Oh, that's so hard. I mean, I really quite fancied him when he was doing the Soul Boy look, and it was all suits and slick back dark hair. He looked gorgeous then, but it's got to be Ziggy Stardust. That's the most iconic, with a really outlandish makeup. And you know, every time a woman applies a glittery eyeshadow, every time the influence is right there, that's David Bowie.
Yeah, and this is really hard. Maybe you can't answer it, but do you have a favourite song?
It's impossible. we were talking earlier. The one song that I was probably the most impressed with, which was really obscure, was that you went live on a Bing Crosby show and did Little Drummer Boy.
Yes.
And to this day, I mean, the courage of the man to do that, because Bing Crosby is regarded as one of the most purest singers in the world. And I think just for the fact that he had the courage to do that, I think that's one of my favourite tunes of his.
Will he be looked back on as the proper rock and roll star? I mean, did he live the rock and roll lifestyle?
Yeah, he did in his early days, absolutely.
In his early days.
You know, but I mean, you know, but he is the man that developed modern day music, the approach to modern day music, where you have to really understand every facet of media. I mean, he was very much like that, and you know, but he was a very funny man. He used to make me laugh.
The funny man is me.
And we're all of a certain age, but you believe that things that he pioneered live on today, that actually his influence is still there.
They definitely do. In the cab coming down, I was thinking, okay, influences of David Bowie, flat caps, V-neck play suits, bright socks, very outlandish prints, suits for men. You see them on the high street all the time in pastel colours. He was a pioneer of all of this at a time when they were outrageous, when men's fashion was like, well, you might as well look at paint drying, it was so boring. So yeah, he was a one-off. And very contemplative as well. He went off to Berlin for quite a while to sort of go inward, to read poetry. He got involved with the art scene there, and he completely changed his look. And he went from very flamboyant to really low-key.
Just finally then, Jack, Black Star. I mean, do you see it how people are seeing it today, that this is his goodbye, that this was all pre-planned?
I think it is his goodbye, but I don't think he'll ever be forgotten.
Lovely to talk to you both, Jack Stephen and Lizzie Zita. Thank you both.
Okay,
Thank you too.
I have to say, I've been incredibly surprised by the sheer quality of what's going on here.